Hey guys, welcome back to Troutman Family Presents. I'm Joe, and Orion and Drake are out playing right now with my friend Steve's son Emmanuel. The only thing better than playing with new toys is playing with friends. And this is we do have a very special guest today. This is Mr. Steve Koch. He is a 3D designer, and he has worked on several G.I. Joe projects. One of which was he did the main design work for the Haslab Dragonfly, as well as some other stuff that we may or may not see in the future. Yeah, super happy to have you on today.
Thank you.
And first, if you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself, about your business that you do with G.I. Joe.
Been working on G.I. Joe stuff for quite a few years now, mainly just doing some designs for myself and the community. People can buy my files and print their own. I've also worked for Hasbro on numerous projects, both G.I. Joe and other lines as well. I was hired at the time actually as a vendor on the Dragonfly. And that was a Haslab that was just released last year to the public, or shipped last year. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorite designs that I've worked on, and a couple other things that I've worked on. This one was a limited project, but not a Haslab. That was for fans and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, your work is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Right now we are building a terror drone that one day, hopefully, in the next year or so, we'll have it all complete, because it's a monster project. And we're getting boxes and boxes of pieces in, and that one we're definitely going to be doing a full video, and hopefully we'll be able to get Steve back to do some demonstration on that. The Tomahawk here, this thing's super cool. I like it. This is was Steve's prototype model, and I like the blue. We're using it for the Night Force. I think the colors work really well with it. The detail is amazing on it. So I know we're going to talk about the Dragonfly, but this thing is so new and I keep on staring at it. Could you go over some of the cool features on it real quick, Steve?
Yeah. I'm gonna put my water down here. So, like the original Tomahawk, the canopy or the windshield does open up, and then you've got your flight sticks. Fits the figures, the 6-inch figures with no problem. They fit perfectly. Even now, this one, it's scaled at 100%. There are a couple guys who've scaled it up a bit, so if you do want to make it a little bit bigger, they've done that. I personally cannot sell any more of these files, and I can't sell any physical prints. That is part of the deal I made with a group of guys who did back this. But if you hit me up on Facebook, or Instagram's probably the best, which is S3D_toys. I do have a list of the backers who are selling prints, and they're actually selling it for a pretty reasonable price. But yeah, there's a lot of cool features on this. So when I designed this, I figured I wanted this to definitely pay homage to the Tomahawk, to the original. The Tomahawk was actually my favorite vehicle other than the Rattler growing up as a kid. It was actually, so there was 3. There was the Rattler being number 1, Tomahawk being number 2, and Sky Striker being number 3. And the Tomahawk was one of those toys I wanted, from the day I saw it at KB Toys on display, back when they would have this toys on display, and I wanted one bad. And unfortunately, I got the Maggot instead, which was kind of a bummer, although years later, I came home with my brother, and my mom made us wait outside. We weren't allowed to come inside for a number of hours. Well, we thought we were in trouble. Little did we know, they took the room that I had, and they made me share a room with my brother. They did the bunk beds, but it was because my mom had bought a massive toy collection at a yard sale, and in it was a Tomahawk. It was the only thing I cared about that was in that entire collection. and I loved it, even though I broke every single blade on it. And I probably had so much dried super glue on my fingers throughout the years when I was a kid, because you glue the pieces together. I find I won't want to use my dad's soldering iron trying to melt the plastic. Yeah, so it was I loved it. I loved it a lot. But anyway, so you do have the bottom winch. It's just like the original. You have all the bombs and the missiles, although they stay on a little bit better, and these bombs aren't going to crack in half like the original. But one of the other things I did add was, so I wanted the guns to be able to come in and out. It's going to be a little hard to display here, but also I wanted a rescue hoist on the side, up high, like a traditional, let's say, a rescue helicopter would be. Now, I remember hearing stories from the original Hasbro team on the Tomahawk when they first started developing this, the original one. And one of the things that they said, I guess there was some secretary at Hasbro who thought that the Tomahawk should be a rescue helicopter. And she didn't like the idea of it having any guns or weapons or anything like that. And she was making a big deal about it. Well, they said, no, it's going to have the guns, all that. But it brought me back to that story. And I said, you know what, why not add some rescue features? So there's actually a stretcher that's inside the vehicle. It is something that I know Joe will take some screenshots, and you'll see that up there in the one of the corners, or bottom corner, or in the middle, somewhere in the video.
Maybe above our head.
Look, it's right there. Look, Joe, there it is. But anyways, he'll be able to upload that, so you'll see some more detailed screenshots of the inside. I did have it to where, again, the guns on this do pivot and rotate and move up and down. So that way it makes it a lot more fun. All the engine panels are removable, just like the original. The back ramp does come down as well. The gun here turns. The only thing I didn't do that I was going to do, I just opted not to just because of time, was I was going to make the Gatling gun spin. But, you know, it does move up and down, side to side, stuff like that. It just, the cannon itself does not spin. Same with kind of like with the Dragonfly, you know, although my prototype, it did spin. So that is something that they took away from that. Although Mark did make he made certain changes to it. That was one I didn't like, but I'll just say mine actually had spin. But for whatever reason, I understand, you know, to help with costs and stuff like that, certain features do get, you know, kind of put aside. But then they add certain features too. So I understand that it's a part of, you know, when they do the costing and stuff like that with these vehicles. But other than that, I mean, it's a great vehicle. I personally am not allowed to sell any. That's why this was my prototype. I'm gifting it to Joe. It's not for sale. It's not being sold to him, but this is his. And again, it was a gift. He's been a good friend. And we're working on some other projects together on some stuff that will be announced later on to you guys. And this was definitely, you know, for me, it's taking up too much space in my house, and I don't typically keep anything that I design just because of space. So, yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to put it here either, but we'll figure that out. So some of the things I like, the detail work, there's so much paneling, you know, there's the rivets inside, and I think we've got the entire Night Force that I've got so far fit inside perfect. And I've only kind of glanced. I have not got to dig in because we've been hanging out and talking. And but is there like a stretcher area in there?
Yeah, so that's where I was saying you'll be able to show them,
Yeah.
you know, the screenshots. But yeah, the stretcher, so if you move this gun off to the side, he's kind of sitting back on it, but the stretcher is back here.
Okay, yeah,
In the front.
I thought I saw that. And then there's
And the stretcher comes out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can fit 7 classifieds in there, no problem.
Yes. So you could fit 5 sitting down inside the main area, and then you can have the guy laying down, and the stretcher, here, let me pull this out for you. The stretcher does come out, and it actually clips in. So there's 4 pegs on the bottom of the stretcher, and there's holes, and there's like a bed in there that this clamps down to. So that way you don't have to worry about this falling out or anything like that. And then there's also storage space behind this chair there, behind the cockpit area. So yeah, you have your stretcher here. The figures fit on it perfectly, so I'll just have them laying down here. So the figures fit on it. It's not like that stretcher that we got with Doc, where it's very flimsy. Although there is now a design attachment that you could put on that stretcher to keep it to where it actually stays still and it doesn't collapse. Especially because the Dragonfly here, the stretcher that Doc has, and this stretcher that I designed actually fits just like that.
Oh, cool.
So when I did this design, I made sure, because originally I made sure that the measurements, that's why if you notice these pegs here, fit perfectly in between.
Wow.
They don't overgap it.
That's a nice perk to designing the Dragonfly is, you know, you get to make these all in the same world, all in the same play scale, and that's really cool, man. I like that.
You know, the funny thing is, and I knew it would fit, but it's the first time I've actually done that to this. So, but I knew it would fit because of the way I designed it. And then the other thing too, so let's say if it's not on the stand, so even though there's enough room in the rear part of the skiff, I had it to where you can actually put multiple of these, although you had the stand up right now, but if the stand wasn't there, you could fit multiple in here along it. So you could rescue a bunch of Joes after they were mauled down by the saw viper, you know, little comic, you know.
That's cool. Oh, they didn't do so well against the saw viper.
No, I don't think there were many survivors.
Yeah, quick kick wasn't so quick.
No, neither was Doc.
So,
Poor Doc.
well, this is super cool. I mean, it's amazing. And then you were showing me there were a couple removable panels. Are those easy to get off?
Yeah. So with this one being a prototype, also the other thing too for storage, if you want the wings do fold in, similar to the Eagle Hawk that was done by Hasbro in I want to say it was 2009 or 2010 when they did the Eagle Hawk, and that one was designed to where the wings or the blades would fold in for storage, and it does the same thing with this. I also put there's little clips that you could put in to help stabilize it so you don't have to worry about them folding in if you don't want them to. But yeah, so these panels are all removable. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So all the panels are removable here. So if you want to see like the engine detail, you can. It's like you've got panels there, and you can see all the wiring and cabling, and you know, you've got different exhaust ports, you've got more rivets, you've got your what's it called, carburetor, which is right here. All kinds of cool stuff.
What's this little piece? You got the gun up here. Is that?
It's a radar and camera, I think.
Radar and camera. Okay.
I just based it off of what their design was, but I think it was supposed to be like a camera or radar.
You know, I wish that Hasbro would put what these things are and what they do. I know it's.
I think they did on the blueprints. A lot of them would actually label or say what it was. So I think that those were cameras or a radar. Typically that's around the same spot I think it would be, or maybe a guidance system. But I just wanted to make sure it looked just like that. And so, but one of the things that I love doing are the rivets. Now it's funny because when I was at the DFW show, I met with a lot of the Hasbro original, greats. Here, I can help you with that. Okay. So this is the updated one, which I had to push a little bit more for us, but there you go. And when a lot of these original guys, they didn't have, these 3D programs like Fusion 360 or 3ds Max or even Maya, which is one of my go-to programs. And so they were doing everything by hand. And it was cool how some of the guys were telling me they would use the soldering irons to make the little rivet, things, or they would even they would take with the plastic and they would, do this, the stenciling on it. And the way they talked about how they did some of that was really kind of cool. But yeah, no, with 3D design software, this stuff's so much easier to do and less time too.
the detail that you've got on here is just off the hook. It's amazing, and if you guys are interested, Steve can point you in the right direction to pick up a Tomahawk. And then what vehicles do you have available for sale on your site off the top of your head?
So on my site, no, I'm not printing anything anymore. I do go through a third party to print for me, just because any printing I'm doing now is just strictly for prototyping. Unless it's a smaller vehicle, depending on what time I've got. But I've got the Stun, I've got the Whale, I've got the Dreadnought Cycle, got the Hydrofoil, I've got the Sky Striker, the Dragonfly, the Super Cobra, the unproduced G.I. Joe train. Now that's in O-ring scale. I've got, God, there's a number of things. I'd have to take a look. I've got the Snowcat. I've got the APC, both the Palatoys UK version and the US version. And it's more than just the top that makes a change. It's also the internals of the APC that makes it different. Yeah, and then I'm working on the, I don't even want to call it a Mauler, because technically it's not the Mauler. So I'm working on the Abrams. It's kind of inspired off the Ramen Toys. So if you want something that's injection mold, definitely buy from Ramen Toys. They are a fantastic company. The guy who runs it, he's an amazing guy, a really nice guy. Everybody likes him. He's good to the community. But if you want to be able to print your own, I am still selling the files for that. So it would be 3D printed versus injection mold. And mine is going to be a little bit bigger, but you don't have the benefit of injection molding with my stuff, unfortunately, when it comes to that. I'm doing the bridge layer, doing the equalizer top to it, and I'm also doing this plasma tank as well. And then I'm also doing the Conquest X30, working on that. That should be done in about a month, hopefully sooner. And then, yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff.
Is the Terradrome available to purchase still?
So a printed one, no, but the files, yes.
So if you guys have access to a 3D printer, you can get the files from Steve, and that'll teach you how to, like, you'll be able to print it out. So I've been working on the Terradrome a little bit, and I told Steve, I said, this is super cool. I got no idea how to put this thing together. This is like above me. So what we'll do is, once we get a couple more pieces in, we are going to start putting together a video on us putting it together. So that way, for other people that are not as experienced with this, it'll be able to help walk you guys through it, and it's really cool. I can't wait. I always wanted to have the Terradrome as a kid. I had one of my good friends, Eric Gaskell, had one, and that's the only one I ever saw. And yeah, I had all the Transformers. He had all the Joes, and that probably is what got me hooked into G.I. Joe, was seeing that for the first time. And from what I have of that one so far, man, it's super exciting.
Yeah, and it's massive. It's funny. So designing it, I knew it was going to be big. I actually have not put one together myself because it's so big, and because of time, and I spend more time designing than I do printing. So I source this out through a partner of mine, and seeing it laying down on Joe's floor, this thing's massive. So I want to say it's 44 inches in length by 44 inches. So this thing is massive. And I also sell a kit. So if you want to make it the ultimate 3 3/4 inch, Terradrome, you can still print everything the same size, except for the kit changes the chairs and all the other stuff to where it's for smaller figures. So it could be the ultimate, relay station. No, I'm just kidding. But the ultimate Cobra station. Me personally, I love the Terradrome. I have 2 of them. I have one loose complete, and I have one mint and sealed box. And as a kid, I never owned one. I didn't even know that they had one until later on. Yeah, when I think I got a little bit older, I was kind of gearing away from toys, getting more into sports and stuff like that. And so I think it was one of my brother's toys. He came with a little catalog. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because we used to just make our little bases in the backyard.
Yeah, digging holes, have the pit.
Yeah.
Yep, we did that.
Oh yeah, well I had a friend of mine, Armando. His dad, he was a professional landscaper, so he would always bring us home. And Armando and I, we both played with GI. Everybody I think on our street played with GI Joes, but Armando's dad was the coolest because the way their backyard was, they had this hill, and so his dad would actually help us build trenches and would bring us big PVC pipe that they didn't need and stuff for drainages and things like that. And so we were making our own bases. You know, God, I would have loved a terror drum as a kid.
God, yeah. We had we had it dug underneath the deck. We had a big deck in the backyard, and we'd turn on the hose, so we'd have a running water, and we put the bridges, and it was good. That's that's what made the 80s so awesome. That's how we played with our toys. Now, God, we're scared to let our kids play with them sometimes.
I know, yeah.
Which is why, we have our review channel, and my boys are so good with it. So I do love the fact that we can all enjoy them together. So maybe I'll let them dig a hole in the backyard one day.
Right?
Yeah.
I love my son. I'm not letting him dig a hole with. He can dig a hole with his stuff, but not my son.
So Steve, while I got you here,
yes.
Haslab has been a real popular subject. I was absolutely floored seeing the Dragonfly, and knowing your involvement with it. I'd love to dig in a little bit more with you, and if you don't mind, I don't know what you can answer and what you can't answer. So if you think that it might be something that is sensitive, just say you don't want to answer.
I could talk about the Dragonfly. Can't talk about anything else.
Okay.
Because even though I'm no longer employed by Hasbro, no longer doing any projects with them, and to be honest, I'll never do anything for them ever again. But I did sign a lot of NDAs, and I don't want to.
No, I
can talk about this. There's no problem there.
Yeah, I understand, and I've been in the same boat too with them. So that's why I'm saying, don't talk about anything if you shouldn't be talking about it.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of ask some questions that I think people would like to know. So you started. Well, why don't we just start here? Let's start at the very basics. How much of this was yours? Where did you come in at? Did you come in at the very ground up? Did you come in and do detail work after? Share with us where you started out with the Dragonfly concept.
So I came in from the ground up on the Dragonfly. So there's certain things obviously I didn't add. I didn't add the blast effects. None of this is me, the blast effects. Those are all Mark Foster, from my understanding. But everything else was mine, design-wise, except for the figures. I didn't do the figures as well. But early on, when I got hired to work on the Dragonfly, they present, and this is with any toy line, they present some artist sketches. You go over, you have meetings, and you discuss, okay, this is certain features we'd like to see. You make detailed notes, and then from there, I would go ahead and I would start doing the 3D model. And so I basically knew what they were looking for from some of the sketches, some images they had of some real working Super Cobras. They had the Viper, I think was one of them. There were a couple other helicopters, and of course, the main look of the original Dragonfly, which they still wanted to capture. Now, there were some small changes, like obviously the one I designed, I didn't have gels. That's something that that's, I think, a Lenny thing that he adds, which I like. The gels are great. The gels that's what gives you the lighting. So when you look at the lights, you see the images or the control panels. When I designed it, everything was sculpted. So my original model, it was all sculpted. So there were no gels in mine. Mine didn't light up. Although I did have placements for the lights on mine. There were no lights or anything like that. Again, no blast effects. So that's actually a cool feature with this blast effect coming off the pylon. Verse 2, I think it was I want to say it was what's it called? what was it, the Jeep that they did, the
Vamp?
not the Vamp, the other one, the
Stinger
Jeep, yes sir. So the Stinger Jeep came with blast effects, but on mine, and I saw someone else had done it, they cut, you know, the area for the pylons, so that way you can have the missiles where it's flying off of it. So I wound up doing that for mine, and so for Hasbro and Hasbro does pay attention, and they are on the social media channels, and they do listen to what fans want. So I thought that was kind of a cool feature that they did that. Especially, I mean, yeah, I like having my armament on the helicopter, but if you want to have those blast effects, that's a really cool feature that was added. Again, that wasn't me, but it's really cool that they've done that. Couple features, and I'll show you some changes. So let's actually remove this just for now, just so I can show them. So the other change that was made that I had nothing to do with. So if you remove this cap, right, so this hand hurts a bit. But so my design, this was a little bit more beefier, and so it resembled more of the Dragonfly. And it's funny, so when I was having my meeting with both Mark and at the time Joshua Lamb, who was the head of Haslab, when we were talking about this, nobody really knew what this was. People were saying, oh, it might be a radar, it might be a stabilizer. And I think it came down to, at the end, they said, oh, it's going to be like a stabilizer. You know, so that's why they have it to where it rotates and stuff like that. So mine, now it didn't rotate because it was a 3D model, but it was a little bit bigger and it looked more like, you know, your traditional Dragonfly. I didn't know they were going to put a cap and make it a little bit smaller, but I thought that was kind of cool that it is covered, but you can remove that and you've got that feature. Is this glued?
No.
These aren't moving real well. I think you have these on backwards.
Do I?
Or not backwards where they're facing, but I think they might. Oh, we'll fix it later.
Okay.
Because yeah, they should be able to move up and down.
Yeah, I think they do. I got them. Just haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, don't break them though. So they should pop out. Yeah, see. Yeah, I think you're in wrong. Here, I'll fix that for you.
See, nice having the expert here.
Yeah.
I never would have known that.
Yeah, so. Okay, so we'll fix. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so yours was in, but it wasn't in the right spot. See, it's supposed to be free like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'll fix that for you.
All right.
Yeah, because yours was just pushed in, but it wasn't in the slot. Now there.
See, it helps to have the Pro over.
Now, I knew they were going to do this, but I didn't do the articulation. That's another thing that, I don't know who did the engineering on that, but I knew that was going to be done, but I didn't add any of that. But that was great. This is the only thing I didn't like that was changed on it. I thought that was kind of like, why? You know, but it's still, it's cool. I mean, I love the Dragonfly. I love the fact that they did use my canopy other than the hinges. They changed a little bit. My hinges were a little bit stronger. But I guess to make theirs more aesthetic, they did, you know, and one thing you want to be careful about when you do open this, you don't want to pry it. This is the max you're going to be able to open this canopy on this side. When you open on this side, same thing. And make sure this is always above. You don't want that underneath when you're lifting it. Otherwise, you will crack it and break it there. And anybody who has had a broken canopy, quickly contact Hasbro. It's their Consumer Affairs, not Hasbro Pulse, but you got to contact Consumer Affairs. They're the only ones who could do any kind of replacement parts for your Haslab, or any Haslab actually. They're the only ones who can do that. And so, but he's opened up the right way. And honestly, most people I think just open it this way unless they're doing, you know, photography or something like that, just because you really don't want to break those. But I mean, other than that, I mean, this was a fun project to work on. You know, I love doing rivets. I love doing panel lines. I love engine detail. So for me, that was a joy to do. Doing the cluster bombs, this was fun. You know, same with the, I don't know if you have it on the other side. No, you don't have it.
They're in the other room.
Okay, yeah. So you've got the pods. I've thrown the pods actually on multiple vehicles that I've designed. Have come with those, but I love the pod. I have those on mine. I don't have the winch or the side cannon. Yeah, it was a fun helicopter.
Yeah, it looks great. The only challenge with these is they're so big.
Yeah.
So
That's why I don't keep most of them. I'm keeping a Dragonfly, and I've got a couple that are still sealed.
yeah.
But yeah, they're too big.
So I mean, they're amazing. Like you wouldn't want to have them smaller. You want them bigger, but it's just the real estate that it takes up in the house. That's the only thing that is a challenge. But you know what? There's always ways to be creative. Honestly, I love how they have the stand. The stands are so awesome for that. You know, definitely I'll find a place to put the Tomahawk. Probably right where I had all my Night Force figures standing. It'll take up a little bit more room, but you know, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, and this one's not bad. I mean, this one's easily displayable, which is nice about this. I mean, I've got two of them on display. I've got one in the master bedroom, and then I've got one in my office.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what the new Haslab is this year for G.I. Joe.
Me too.
Transformers we talked about the other day with Leo Kaiser. Really excited about that. It just funded. So hopefully that hits all 3 tiers. I'm just glad that I'm going to be getting one. And yeah, I think, is there anything that you'd like to chat about this? Because I know you have another project that you're working on. Once we finish up here, I'd like to ask you about that too.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So there's another property out in the 80s called Army Ants.
Ah,
yeah, and you recently got the license for it, and yeah, so what?
Not the license, the IP. I own the IP now.
The IP, that's even better. So tell me what's going on. Is that moving along? Is that?
Yeah, so we just started manufacturing. I should have some FEPs within the next 2 to 3 weeks. For you, those of you who are out there who don't know what an FEP is, that's a factory engineered prototype. So I should have a couple of those, along with hopefully some paint masters. I don't know if I'm gonna get that when I get the first run of the FEPs, or if that's gonna be maybe on the second. And because the Army Ants had very minimal paint, so it's a process called masking. So they're gonna be paint masks or stamps essentially that they're gonna come up with that will be on the ants. They will be about the same size of the original, although most of them will be new designs or some updated designs, as well as one of the guys who I'm working with from the factory knows Steve Varner. Varner Studios was they were the original designers for the Army Ants for Hasbro back in the 80s. And so they have, I think, some prototypes that were never released. So I'm hoping to gain access to those and maybe release those as well. As well as if this line's successful, I know a lot of you who may still have some old Army Ants at their house who've lost accessories or the little butts, things like that. So I plan on maybe doing a one-time accessory pack, but that's going to be down the line. We're also going to make a game out of it. We're going to give it something that Hasbro never did, and that's a story.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, it gives some type of life to it, and unlike the Pixar or Disney, Bugs Life for ants, these will actually be cool because they're Army Ants. You're going to have 2 different factions, as well as we're going to do other insect lines as well. Mm. And they are static figures, so there is no articulation to them. It kind of reminds me of the old days. You go to the gumball machine and you buy your little muscle man or the the little homies, and those were cool. Or just even the old green army men.
Yeah.
You give a boy a little green soldier, and you use your imagination. You have a great time. And so we have some really big plans with this. Not doing any crowdfundings, no Kickstarters. Although I back a lot of crowdfunds. That is a direction I did not want to go. I wanted to go straight to market. This is going to be a DTC type thing, so it's going to be direct to consumer. I may go with Big Bad or Entertainment Earth. Still not decided yet, because in order for me to do that, I had to set up MAP pricing, things like that, or what's called a guaranteed buyback, so things don't go to clearance, because I don't ever want my brand to be devalued.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of logistics there, but more than likely it'll be DTC, direct to consumer. And we're going to start off with 4-packs. So, and you're going to have 2 blue ants, 2 orange ants, and they're going to be 4-packs. And
That's cool. It sounds like a lot of fun. And how big are they going to be?
about 1.5 inches to 2 inches.
Okay, so they're perfect. You could fit them into any storyline, G.I. Joe, Transformers.
Yes.
They will make some cool, display dioramas. New enemy to fight. Or I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to that. And then the best way to find Steve is through Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, I also have, Instagram's better. Facebook, I don't interact as much or don't really check. So I try to check my messages, but with Facebook, it gets kind of difficult. Instagram's the best way, which is S3D_toys. Or you can go to my website and you can actually message me or call me through my website, which is s3dtoys.com. And it's the number 3, then the letter D, toys.com. So it's s3dtoys.com for my website. And again, there is a messenger on there. I do reply to everybody. If I don't get back to you right away, it could be I'm in a meeting or sleeping or whatever. But I will get back to you. I do return all messages.
One other thing I could do, if I get the notifications here. So if you guys have any comments, something that maybe you had a question, if you do want to leave a comment in the comment section, if you don't get that, I can give you a text message and be like, hey, someone asked this question, and you'd be willing to jump in and come back?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, most definitely. And then the Army Ants, we will have a website. I actually think the site's up now, but it just goes to a placeholder. And that's armyantstoys.com.
Awesome.
So it's ants as in plural, then toys, plural.com. So it's armyantstoys.com.
Cool. Well, this has been absolutely mind-blowing. Every time I look at the Dragonfly, it floors me. It is just so cool. I'm so happy to have one of these. The Tomahawk, man, we've been hanging out, but I've just been itching to start digging in on that. It looks great. We all appreciate what you're doing, bringing these things to life with our classified scale. It's bringing the toys as a kid to the big boy level now. So thank you for that.
Oh no, thank you. And honestly, it's the community. For the most part, the community's been great. You get a couple knuckleheads here and there, and that happens. But for the most part, everyone's been really fantastic. I love seeing guys who this was their favorite toy as a kid and getting it now on a larger scale. Like the guy who I delivered that whale to, it was last year. And because I don't keep my prototypes because they're so big and I'm limited on space and I have to kind of pick and choose what I keep. So after I finished it, I had it up in one of the groups, and this guy he's only a couple hours from me, he offered me a pretty penny for it, and I was like, all right, cool. And seeing how happy he was, that made me happy. I mean, it's one of those things where, I loved this stuff when I was a kid. I love it now as an adult. Although don't hate me for this, I'm more of an O-ring guy. I never go full classified. That's a shout out to my buddy Chad right there. But never go full classified. I do love the classified stuff, but I'm an O-ring guy. I can fit the O-ring stuff on my shelves. Classified stuff's a little difficult, but I love doing it.
I love what Classified is able to do with the figures. I love the detail work. If Hasbro was releasing all the vehicles 3 3/4, obviously that's the best way to go.
Yes.
But it's so hard to get those old. They're not re-releasing it. The Sky Striker came out as a Haslab project for something that it was an improvement on the original, but it did not reinvent the wheel with it by any means.
No, it was new tooling for sure, but they didn't really. There were some there were some really nice upgrades and updates to that. I love that Sky Striker.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite Haslabs to date, and I had nothing to do with that. I mean, and it looks amazing. What they did with that, I mean, it was fantastic. It was a beautiful jet. I have a bunch of those too, but again, they're smaller.
Yeah.
I feel like we're classified. We're able to do things that were limited back, in the 80s or even 90s on what they could release and do. That's why, like, I take certain privileges when I do design. Like, so for example, the Tomahawk, adding the rescue hoist, I always felt like it needed that. And then hearing the stories about that one secretary that made such a big deal about it being a rescue helicopter, and I still felt like it needed to be a gunship, because this reminds me of almost like the Hind, the Russian Hind, but it's the G.I. Joe version. I'm not calling it Russian, so I don't want anyone to say, oh, whatever. It is the G.I. Joe version. It's a gunship, but I did want there to be a rescue aspect to it. I wanted to, nice little shout out to that annoying secretary from Hasbro from back in the day that said, oh, it should be a rescue helicopter. Well, now you get a little bit of both. And that's the one thing I feel like with the classified stuff you could add so much more. The fact that the original Dragonfly, amazing helicopter, I love it. I have a couple of those myself, but it was limited on what it could do. Now, by the way, a lot of people did ask, oh, how come they didn't make it to where you could move the little thing and the blades could spin? Well, first off, the blade was too big, and that's liability. Also, the way it's packaged, in order for them to get it to fit in the package, the tail does clamp into the main body, and because of that, that's also why there was no mechanism on that. It is something that it was talked about, it was discussed, but ultimately that had to be left out because of the fact that you now have a blade that's spinning, and it's as it is, even trying to do it by hand and hold it up is a little difficult. You have to be away from it. Because watch, try that real quick. Yeah, so you got, like, whenever I try it, I always hit my arm, But again, I mean, I think it looks gorgeous. The finished product is definitely better than any 3D, image or CGI image or CG image, sorry. Or even a resin prototype. This is the ultimate. To me, this is the ultimate Dragonfly. So
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I think if I was a kid and it just had the lights, I probably wouldn't have been impressed. But as an adult, it's so cool. I love the lights. It's so awesome.
Well, it goes back to the HISS tank. So when Hasbro did the Haslab HISS tank, when we knew what they were doing, I was thinking to myself, okay, for me to buy this, because I had nothing to do with the HISS tank. I knew the designer on it, Mark Foster, and I knew he does great work. But I knew for me, it had to be really worth it, because I had already printed a HISS tank, that was designed by someone else. And so for me to buy one, I felt like it really has to stand out. And when the first time I saw that Cobra sigil light up, I was like, okay, I sign me up. I'm buying 2. Yeah. Give me 2, And I wish I would have bought more, because number one, the price was cheap on that.
And all the unlocks and all the extra figures with it.
Oh my God, talk about a steal. Yeah. I don't think, and granted, that was the first Haslab. I don't know if they can get to that price with today's current events. Yeah. And with the market today, it would definitely, I think, be more. But that HISS tank was, oh my gosh. First off, so I loved the HISS 2. The HISS 2 was always my favorite.
That's the one I started with too, was the HISS 2 with the back. Yeah.
I mean, I had both, but the HISS 2 I loved over the regular HISS, just because you open up the back and it was a troop carrier. Well, they kind of paid homage to that with this. You could fit, and they say you can only fit like the one, really. I actually fit a couple of mine standing up and the guy sitting down. And it's roomy. And then the weapons rack, and then everything about that, just to me, and I use all the side rocket pods, and I use everything on it. I mean, it is definitely one of my favorite Haslabs. Okay, so I designed this. The HISS tank is actually my favorite over this. And I didn't design the His tank. I love the His tank even more than I love this.
So, one thing, I was keeping my Cobra Commander, I was keeping him in the box until I went over to your place, and you had him sitting in the turret pointing out like that, and I had to open him up, and he's in my His tank, in the thing, pointing just like that, because, oh man, it looks so cool.
I mean, that His tank, that to me, I mean, who doesn't, I mean, first off, it's Cobra, come on. Who doesn't love Cobra? I mean, Cobra, it's the one time, other than the Decepticons or Transformers, I always root for the Decepticons. I love Megatron,
Yeah.
you know, but, and I love the Joes, you know, General Hawk's my favorite character.
Yeah.
But I love Cobra, like, I could hear both Chris Latta and Frank Tadaro right now, their voices doing the Cobra, and it just gives me goosebumps, like.
Dude, Frank has got Cobra Commander and Starscream
Frank. Oh
down.
my God.
Yeah.
I think if Chris Latta was alive today, he would be honored by Frank.
Yeah.
Just because Frank has done, and I know Frank's not here right now, but Frank has done those two characters so much justice. And to me, Frank Totaro is Cobra Commander. He is Starscream. I don't want to see another G.I. Joe or Transformers thing that has both Starscream and Cobra Commander without his voice.
Yeah.
For me, his voice they are those two characters.
He's so passionate.
And he is. Yeah. And he's such a great guy. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He's great with the fans. He's great with kids. He's great with just everybody. I mean, and again, his voice, he talked to my class. Because I teach a 3D class. And he talked to them, and they were so cool when they met. Because I had kids who were designing Mugman. And they love him. I mean, he is just such a personable guy. And again, his voices, I'm in love with the Starscream and Cobra Commander. And I know I shouldn't say this, even a little bit more than the original Chris Latta one. I think with his, it's a little bit, I don't know, it just, the Chris Latta one, I love it. It's great, but sometimes you can get a little annoyed by it, the squeakiness, but not with Frank's. With Frank's, it's just perfect every time.
I think, and I think it was probably done on purpose. They definitely had
Cobra
Commander and Starscream a little extra cowardly.
Yes, they had him whine a lot.
Yeah, and Frank Tadaro brings in a little more competence to the characters.
Yes, he does.
So,
and I'm not saying anything bad about Chris Latta because
that's how they wrote the character.
Yeah, that's how they wrote the character. That's what he was paid to do, and he was a phenomenal voice actor, dude. Even a great actor. Because I know he went also by Christopher Collins. He was in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. He was one of the No-Mams from Married with Children.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I look at Frank's version, and he does have more, you know, I guess more competent. He's more competent. You know, he's more of a leader in that sense, and again, his voices are great. I was telling Frank, and I think I was even talking to you about the Robosons. If they ever do a Starscream, it's got to be Frank's voice. Yeah. If it's not Frank's voice, I am not buying it. Yeah. And I'm okay with not having it. I will have to have it if it's Frank's voice, though.
You know, the way Roboson is coming, when they do a Starscream, it'll be flying around the room. So.
Yeah, right?
Well, hey, Steve, I think we should probably... I think the kids are back, and they still have some energy, it sounds like, outside. I would like to thank you for coming out.
Yeah,
it's always a pleasure getting to hang out with you and see all of the incredible stuff that you're up to. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So
thank you.
Awesome. Well, guys, please like, please subscribe, please comment, please ask questions. And if Steve doesn't see them, I will ping him. We do check the comments. We're still a new channel, so we're not getting totally flooded with comments or anything yet. But thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. All right. Bye. Okay. It's been a long, hard day of terrorism. It's gonna be nice to finally go home and hit the sack. What is that? Get the spotlight up.
Next